Only in Kentucky can a single county claim a 19th century Swiss colony and the exact roadside kitchen that birthed the world's most famous fried chicken empire. Hi, I'm Michael, and I'm learning a little bit more about Kentucky, one county at a time, all 120 of them. And today, I'm learning about Laurel County. Long before European settlers ever arrived, this dense, unbroken wilderness was utilized as a highly prized hunting ground by Native American nations like the Cherokee and the Shawnee. The forests were thick with game, but the terrain was famously difficult to navigate. The county actually earned its name from the incredibly dense, almost impenetrable thickets of mountain laurel and rhododendron that grew wildly along the riverbanks, creating a beautiful but frustrating natural barrier. In the late 18th century, this exact patch of land became the absolute epicenter of American westward expansion. Two of the most legendary pioneer routes in the history of the country, the Wilderness Road and Boone's Trace, actually converged right here in what is now Laurel County. Tens of thousands of weary, desperate pioneers funneled through this incredibly narrow geographic choke point, hauling their meager belongings over the mountains in search of a better life. But that journey was incredibly dangerous. The frontier was a violent, unpredictable place. In the fall of 1786, a large group of pioneer families known as the Mackinac Party was traveling down the trace. They made the fatal mistake of setting up camp for the night without posting adequate guards. They were suddenly ambushed by a Native American raiding party. 24 pioneers were killed in this chaotic, terrifying darkness. Local legend says that one pregnant woman managed to escape the slaughter by crawling into the hollowed-out trunk of a massive fallen tree, where she miraculously survived and gave birth in the dark woods. Today, you can visit the quiet Pioneer Cemetery, marking the site of the Mackinac defeat inside the Levi-Jackson Wilderness Road Park, a solemn reminder of the brutal cost of the frontier. By 1825, the population of the area had grown enough to require its own local government, and so the Kentucky legislature officially carved Laurel County out of parts of Rockcastle, Clay, Knox, and Whitley counties. When it came time to establish a county seat, a local father and son named John and Jarvis Jackson offered up a plot of their own land. Honoring their deep English heritage, they suggested naming the new town London. And so the town was officially founded the following year, and a small brick courthouse was soon erected to serve the growing community of farmers and merchants. Because of its strategic location right on the Wilderness Road, Laurel County remained a vital geographic choke point for decades. During the American Civil War, the Union Army realized that whoever controlled these mountain passes would control the gateway into central Kentucky. They established a fortified stronghold called Camp Wildcat just north of London. Well, in the fall of 1861, a Confederate force marched up the road to smash through the defense, resulting in the Battle of Camp Wildcat. It was a brief but incredibly fierce engagement in the thick brush, and it marked a vital early victory for the Union Army that completely halted the Confederate advance into the Bluegrass region. But as the smoke of the Civil War faded, Laurel County experienced a totally unexpected and fascinating cultural shift. In the 1880s, a large group of Swiss immigrants traveled across the ocean and settled in the northern part of the county. They founded a community called Die Kolonie Bernstadt, naming it after the city of Bern in Switzerland. And so you have to imagine the sheer culture shock of this moment. Right in the middle of this rugged, hard-scrabble Kentucky coalfield, you suddenly had a thriving colony of Swiss immigrants building traditional farmhouses, speaking a completely different language, making Swiss cheese maybe, and attempting to cultivate massive vineyards for winemaking in the Appalachian foothills. And today, East Bernstadt still proudly carries the name and legacy of those ambitious, hard-working colonists. The origin stories of other communities in Laurel County are just as interesting, I think. You have the town of Keevy, which supposedly was named after a popular brand of shoes. You have the coal town of Pittsburgh, deliberately named after the massive industrial heritage of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. You also have the community of Bush, named for an early pioneer family, and you have Sublimity City, which sounds like a utopian novel, but was actually a fascinating federally planned community development in 1935 under the Emergency Relief Appropriation Act, designed to help struggling families build a new life during the darkest days of the Great Depression. But arguably the most famous cultural export to ever come out of Laurel County was born in the kitchen of a humble roadside diner. In the 1940s, a determined entrepreneur named Colonel Harlan Sanders established his first original restaurant in southern Laurel County. It was right there that he obsessively experimented with his pressure cooker and perfected his legendary secret recipe of 11 herbs and spices, laying the foundation for the Kentucky Fried Chicken empire. And the chicken heritage of this county doesn't stop there, though. In 1952, the Colonel's nephew, Lee Cummings, began his own culinary career, working right alongside his uncle there in Laurel County. He took everything he learned about the restaurant business and eventually went on to co-found the massively successful Lee's Famous Recipe Chicken. And the community refuses to let that incredible legacy go uncelebrated. Every single year during the last full weekend of September, the City of London completely shuts down its downtown streets to host the World Chicken Festival. It's a massive, incredibly joyous 4-day celebration of the county's poultry heritage. The absolute centerpiece of the festival is a completely absurd feat of culinary engineering. They use the world's largest stainless steel skillet, which weighs 700 pounds and measures 10.5 feet across, and a team of dedicated cooks uses actual construction equipment to lower it over a custom-built propane burner, frying up to 600 quarters of chicken at the exact same time. The festival is a glorious, chaotic celebration of Americana, packed with carnival rides, free live music, and some wonderfully crazy contests. But what makes it truly special is the community impact. All of that delicious food is served up by nonprofit organizations, and the festival directly benefits over 50 local charities. As the 20th century progressed, the massive construction of Interstate 75 physically transformed the rest of the county. The highway carved a massive concrete artery straight through the hills, completely bypassing the old winding pioneer roads. And so Laurel County suddenly found itself perfectly positioned halfway between Lexington, Kentucky and Knoxville, Tennessee. It shifted from an isolated, resource-driven economy into a massive, booming hub for logistics, distribution, and manufacturing. And this vibrant, deeply rooted environment has produced some of the nation's most notable people, shaping the nation's culture. In my opinion, one of the most important voices to ever emerge from these mountains is the best-selling author Silas House, who was born right there and raised in Laurel County. He's a literary giant whose novels have perfectly captured the complex, beautiful, and often painful reality of working-class Appalachian life. But Silas didn't simply just write about the mountains, he fiercely defended them. He became a prominent environmental activist, fighting relentlessly against the devastating practice of mountaintop removal coal mining and working to protect the dignity and the landscape of the people he grew up with. Musical talent from this county is equally profound. Darrell Scott, a phenomenally talented songwriter and musician who has penned massive hit songs for the Dixie Chicks, Travis Tritt, and Brad Paisley, was born in London as well. And in the world of sports, Laurel County recently gave the state an absolute basketball phenomenon. Reed Shepherd grew up dominating the high school courts in London before going on to play for the University of Kentucky, ultimately being drafted 3rd overall by the Houston Rockets in 2024. And of course, not to mention his dad, Jeff. But the modern story of Laurel County is also defined by a moment of unimaginable tragedy and resilience. On the night of May 16, 2025, the sky over southern Laurel County turned dark and incredibly violent. Atmospheric conditions aligned to produce a catastrophic EF4 tornado. It tore through the southern portions of London with terrifying indiscriminate speed, and the roaring vortex packed winds of over 200 miles per hour, acting like a giant unstoppable grinder. Massive century-old trees were snapped like matchsticks, and roughly 280 family homes were completely obliterated, reduced to splintered timber and bare foundations in a matter of seconds. The destruction was catastrophic, and the human toll was devastating. 17 people in the city lost their lives in the dark, churning chaos of that storm. But when the sun finally rose over the debris the next morning, the true unbreakable character of Laurel County was on full display. The people didn't wait for outside permission to act. Neighbors with chainsaws and tractors were drawn out of the streets before dawn, cutting through downed power lines and heavy timber to pull survivors out of the rubble. The local school gyms were instantly transformed into massive triage centers, overflowing with donated food, water, and clothing from the surrounding communities. The grief was obviously profound, but the people of Laurel County locked arms and completely refused to let the storm break their spirit, and so they just started rebuilding. So, that's Laurel County. What'd I get wrong this time?